I was halfway through reviewing a client proposal when my phone lit up on the desk. Mom. I stared at it for a second before picking up. "Hi, Claire." Her voice was unusually cheerful, almost too bright. I put down my pen. "Hey, what's going on?" "Oh, just wanted to share some great news. Ryan and I are flying to Italy tomorrow." I frowned. "Italy?" "Yes. Oh, and I almost forgot. We sold the lake house and your car. We needed money quickly, and honestly, you weren't using either. Everything's been handled. The funds are already transferred. We leave tomorrow evening. Isn't that wonderful?" She laughed, light and easy, like she hadn't just casually destroyed years of memories in a single phone call. "Love you, sweethearts. We'll send pictures." Click. I sat there staring at the dark screen of my laptop. My own reflection looked back at me. 29 years old, sitting in a busy coffee shop in Austin while the city moved past the windows like nothing had shifted. But everything had. She said we. She meant herself and Ryan, not me. The lake house wasn't just a building. It was where Dad first taught me to swim, where summers smelled like pine trees and grilled corn and time standing still. My car, a 1971 Mustang that Dad and I rebuilt together this summer before he passed. Not flashy, not expensive, but ours. And now both were gone, sold off like old furniture at a garage sale. I closed my laptop slowly. No panic, no tears. Because I had known this moment might come, and I had planned for it. I finished the last sip of cold coffee, reached into my bag, and pulled out a second phone, the one I kept for one contact only. I dialed. One ring. "Claire Morgan?" a calm voice said. "She did it," I replied quietly. "She sold the house and the car." A pause. "Understood. Do we move forward?" "Yes," I said, quietly. "All right, we'll begin with the title transfers. I'll be in touch within the hour." The line went dead. I slid the phone back into my bag and felt the full weight of what came next settle over me. Not like a burden, more like armor. All around me, the coffee shop hummed on, espresso machines hissing, someone laughing near the window. Nobody noticed the woman sitting quietly in the corner, setting everything back into motion. Nobody noticed that someone had just tried to erase me. But she forgot something important. She forgot what my father taught me: how to prepare without making noise, how to wait without giving warnings, and how to protect what belongs to you before anyone else even knows it has value. The envelope had been sitting in the back of my dresser for 16 months. I had moved it twice, once when I relocated to Austin and once after New Year's, but I had never opened it. I had barely even looked at it. His handwriting on the front was still sharp and steady. "For Claire, open this only when you are ready." The day he handed it to me, we were sitting out on the deck of the lake house. I was 28, home from Dallas for the weekend. He filled a chipped mug with black coffee, slid the envelope across the table like it was nothing more than a receipt from the grocery store. "Don't open it," he said, "unless something happens, and only when you feel the time is right." I assumed he meant something dramatic, an arrest, a diagnosis, something big and loud. He never mentioned quietly dying in the garage one Wednesday morning while replacing the brake pads on my car. That envelope became a quiet shadow I carried with me. I kept paying property taxes on the lake house because I thought it was the right way to honor him. I let my mother drive the Mustang because I thought it was the kind thing to do. But then she sold both like they meant nothing. I set the envelope on my kitchen counter. My hands were steady. My chest was not. I ran my thumb along the sealed edge and opened it. Inside were 5 documents. No personal note, no instructions written just for me. The first was a notarized deed transferring the lake house into an LLC dated 2 years before he died. The second was the same for the Mustang. The next 2 documents covered rental properties in Dallas I had never even known about, 2 duplexes generating steady income, and the final page was the original certificate of organization for Morgan Holdings LLC. My full name, my address, his signature, his attorney's stamp, every detail airtight and legal. I read it all twice. My father had seen this coming, and he had not trusted her. I folded the documents neatly into a folder, picked up my second phone, and called Milo. He answered on the first ring. She never had the right to sell any of it, I said. Which means, he replied calmly, we are not just defending here, we are taking back control. Let's start with the buyer, Grant said, sliding the sale papers across his desk. His eyes moved through each page, then slowed. He glanced up. Buyer listed as Harper Lane. I let the smallest smile cross my face. That's not a coincidence. He leaned back in his chair. This was part of your plan? I talked to Harper the week after the funeral, I said. Grant already knew who she was. Freshman year roommate. She works in real estate now. I kept my voice steady. I didn't tell her everything. I just explained that I was worried about someone acting without authority and that I needed someone I trusted to step in quietly if anything ever went sideways. If my mother ever tried to sell property she had no legal right to sell, Harper agreed to act as the buyer. She would hold it safely until I could fix the situation properly. Grant let out a slow whistle and set the papers down. So, your mother attempted to sell property she did not own, and the buyer happens to be someone you arranged in advance to protect your assets. He looked up. That gives us far more than standing to reverse the sale. We could take her to court. I know, I said. His eyebrow lifted. But you don't want that? No, I shook my head. I don't want to embarrass her. I want her to feel what she did, not as punishment, as consequence. A courtroom won't teach her anything real. It will just hand her something new to blame. Silence stretched between us for a moment. Then Grant folded his hands. So, what exactly is the plan? We reverse everything quietly, I said. Undo the transfer, move all titles back under Morgan Holdings, lock the LLC, and notify the county. And when she comes home from Europe? I let the answer sit for just a second before I said it. She will come home to nothing that belongs to her. She will stand at the door of a life she tried to take from me, and the door will not open. Grant gave a slow nod. And Harper? She holds the deed a little longer. When my mother shows up at the lake house, Harper will be the one who says no. I don't want my name anywhere near the rejection. Not yet. You really thought all of this through, he said. 2 years gives you a lot of room to think clearly. By noon, the reversal was already moving. By that evening, every asset was locked back in place. That night, a post appeared on my phone. My mother in oversized sunglasses, Ryan holding his passport up like a prize. The caption read, "Time for our next chapter. Europe, here we come." I didn't comment, didn't like it, didn't react at all. She believed I was sitting in Austin, hurt and helpless. That was the story she wanted. It probably made everything easier for her to sleep at night. I let her have it. While she and Ryan sipped wine somewhere over the Atlantic, I moved quickly and quietly. Grant filed the reversal paperwork with the county. Harper returned the deed in a sealed envelope exactly as we had planned. I logged into the Morgan Holdings account and locked every asset: real estate, vehicle titles, rental income streams. The car was the simplest. The title had never fully transferred. A few steps and it was officially removed from any sale record. Ryan had left the Mustang in long-term airport parking. I arranged for it to be picked up, cleaned, and brought back to my garage. The lake house required more precision. Grant drafted the notice under the LLC. My name would not appear anywhere in the paperwork. Harper would be listed as the authorized representative when the letter arrived, 30 days after my mother's scheduled return. Just enough time for her to unpack, take a breath, maybe pour herself a glass of wine, and then find the notice taped to the front door. I was not angry. That surprised me more than anything. I had expected rage. What I felt instead was cleaner than that, a kind of quiet distance that comes when you finally stop asking someone to be who they are not capable of being. Dad used to say that some people don't leave on their own. They wait until they are made to go. My mother had always been that kind of person. I used to believe she would come around eventually, that one day she would realize family is not something you spend down and walk away from. But that was before I saw her name on forged documents. They say revenge is best served cold, but this was never revenge. This was consequence, an education she had written for herself, and now she was about to receive it. The day they landed in Lisbon, I made one last call to confirm that everything was in place. Then I took the Mustang out for a long evening drive past the lake house she believed she had sold. The Texas sky was open and wide. The windows were down. Nothing felt taken from me anymore. She came back 4 weeks early. No call ahead, no warning. Just a knock on my apartment door on a Thursday afternoon. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize her. Hair pulled back in a rubber band, designer bag overstuffed and starting to warp at the seams. Deep shadows beneath her eyes. She looked like someone who had been running hard and had finally run out of places to go. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then she said my name. Her voice was barely there. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. She walked into my apartment like someone moving through a place they want to belong to. Her eyes swept the room slowly, searching for some trace of herself, even though she had never set foot here before. She stopped near the kitchen counter and stood there, not quite sure where to settle. I didn't ask questions. I just filled the kettle. We sat without speaking until the whistle cut through the silence. I placed a mug of tea in front of her. She wrapped both hands around it and stared into the steam. "Mark left," she said at last. Her voice had no weight to it. "In Portugal. He met someone on a boat tour. 23, some backpacker from France. Said he needed to find himself. Took what was left of the cash and disappeared." I nodded once, not in pity, just to let her know I was listening. "I tried to book a flight home using points," she continued, "but the account was empty. I had to borrow money from a stranger at the airport just to call the airline." She hesitated. Her eyes shone with something raw and small. When I landed, I didn't know where else to go. There it was, the truth underneath everything else. I let the silence hold for a moment. Then I said quietly, "Of course you can stay, just for a little while." She blinked, startled by the kindness. "Thank you. I know I don't deserve it." I didn't argue with that. She moved into the guest room. I gave her clean towels, a spare key, and the Wi-Fi password. I didn't ask about her plans. She didn't ask about what I had done while she was away. In the evenings, she cooked. Clumsy attempts at meals from my childhood. In the mornings, she washed the dishes before I woke up. She was trying. Whether the trying was real or performed, I was not yet certain. But I kept notes, quietly. Every time she used my card, every borrowed call, every small contradiction in her stories. Not to build a case against her, to build clarity for myself. Because forgiveness without truth is not forgiveness. It is erasure. And I had spent enough of my life being erased. One night after she went to bed, I opened the leather notebook I once used for client strategy work and turned to a fresh page. I wrote her name at the top. I wrote the date she came back. Then I started writing. She found the job herself. I never asked where she was going that morning when she left wearing a borrowed cardigan and carrying a wrinkled resume. When she came back that afternoon, she set a folded piece of paper on the counter without saying much. "Night office cleaning, 2 buildings downtown, minimum wage. They said I can start tomorrow if I want." "Then you should," I said. That was all. The first week, she came home with sore feet and stiff shoulders. I left Epsom salts outside the bathroom door without explaining why. She said nothing about it. She woke before sunrise each morning and slipped out quietly, as though she did not want to be seen still reaching for something. Part of me wondered if all of it was a performance, the right kind of suffering played at exactly the right volume. But there were moments when she forgot to perform. One afternoon, I found her in the laundry room scrubbing the cuffs of her work pants by hand. even though the machine sat empty right beside her. No conversation, no audience, just focused work, her mouth set in a straight line. Another evening, she sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, carefully mapping out her hours and expenses like someone building a small life from whatever scraps were left. Nobody was watching. She wasn't narrating. I didn't praise her for it. I didn't step in to make things easier. That wasn't the point. Meals became simple. Lentils, rice, canned tomatoes. She ate every bite without complaint. She no longer pushed food around her plate the way she used to. Sometimes she talked about applying for a second job, about taking some classes, about how she had once wanted to study interior design before, as she put it, things got complicated. I didn't ask what complicated meant. She didn't go into it. We were not exactly mother and daughter in those weeks. We were two women sharing a space where neither one of us was pretending to have the upper hand. Something shifted when she stopped reaching for it. She never once mentioned the lake house, never asked about the Mustang. Maybe she assumed they were already gone. Maybe some part of her understood and chose silence over the conversation she could not face. Silence has its own kind of gravity. It either draws people together or teaches them how to hold themselves upright without needing anyone else to hold them. One night, walking past her door, I heard her crying softly, not loud enough to ask for comfort, just the sound of someone quietly deciding whether there is enough left of themselves to start over from the beginning. The second envelope was smaller. I had nearly forgotten it existed until I found it tucked behind an old photo album in my desk drawer. No label on the front, just my name and my father's careful, steady handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a single folded page. His words, "If she ever comes back, if she tells the truth, give her the rest, but only when you are ready to see all of it yourself." I plugged in the drive. No videos, no voice recordings, only files, ledgers, scanned legal documents, spreadsheets laid out with quiet, deliberate care. A whole hidden world built in silence. The trust was real, created 4 years before he died, tied to an account in Wyoming under a holding company. I was the only beneficiary. The house, the car, the rental properties, they were just the surface. What was underneath was something else entirely. Then I found the buried note, a denied withdrawal attempt from 2 years back, my mother's name, a forged signature. She had tried to access it before, even before the funeral. I printed what mattered, the trust documents, the denied claim, a 1-page summary of every asset now legally mine. Then I sat down and wrote a letter, not to her, not to a lawyer, just to the truth, laid out plainly on paper. When I finished, I sealed it and set it beside her teacup on the counter. The drive to the lake house was quiet. She did not ask where we were going until the gravel crunched under the tires. Her breath caught when she saw it, the pale siding, the old porch swing, the smell of pine and cool water coming off the lake. Inside, she moved like someone walking through a memory. She paused by the small chipped teapot she had picked up at a yard sale years ago. She stopped in front of the photograph of my father on the bookshelf, his grin wide over a fish he caught the summer everything still felt whole. When she finally sat down on the couch, I placed the envelope in her lap and stepped back. From the hallway, I heard the soft tear of paper, then quiet, then the sound of a breath breaking open, then sobs that came in long, rolling waves. She did not deny it. She didn't try to explain it away. She looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time, not as her mother, as the record she could no longer rewrite. "You have a choice," I said quietly. "You can leave with your dignity, or you can stay, not as my mother, as a caretaker. This house is going to become a safe space for women who have been overlooked and pushed aside." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "I want to hear from you now. If you were standing where I stood, what would you have done? Would you have given her another chance or walked away for good? Leave your thoughts below. Tell me what this story means to you about trust, about boundaries, and about what it really looks like to start over. And if you believe in finding your voice again after someone tried to take it from you, make sure you subscribe so we can keep building this conversation together. None of us should ever have to feel erased.